Who Moved My Cheese is a charming story about how to face unexpected changes and find success in all areas of life. It's told through the adventure of 4 characters, Sniff and Scurry, who are mice, and Hem and Haw, who are little people. They all live in a maze and look for cheese, a metaphor for happiness and success. However, cheese is not in a never-ending supply, and when things change, that's when the characters are put to the test. In this story, we see how 2 different groups adapt to change when Station C has run dry and no other cheese is available. By anticipating change, the mice were able to adapt quickly and move to find another cheese station. They had an alternative plan in case this was to happen, so they promptly went on to find new cheese. Faced with change, the little people, however, chose to do nothing. They didn't have a plan, so they were slow to adapt. They figured that if they waited long enough, things might go back to the way they were. Days and weeks went by. Hem and Haw went hungry and weak. Eventually, Haw figured out that waiting could leave you hungry and, unless he changed, nothing would. Change is a natural part of life. Nothing ever stays the same for too long. Accepting change is the first step in your journey to embracing it. While both the mice and the little people were happy that they had found their cheese, the mice understood that this situation could change. The little people, however, thought that things would stay exactly as they were, so they were not ready when change happened for them. They didn't understand why things had changed because they believed they were entitled to the cheese and it was not fair that it had been taken away. Your reason for wanting the cheese and even where you end up finding it may change, which can make you start searching for a different type of cheese altogether. If things change, you need to move with the change, instead of trying to keep things the same. The sooner you realize that change can happen at any time, the easier it will be to adapt to it positively. Anticipating change is the best way to prepare for when it happens. If you always think that change is going to happen eventually, you can read the signals that it is coming. You will have an easier time moving on and positively adapting to it. Sniff and Scurry were always prepared and had their sneakers on hand, in case they happened to not find any cheese at Station C on any given day. They were always prepared for change. However, the little people, as soon as they found the cheese station, they put away their sneakers and moved their home closer to the cheese. They became dependent on the cheese. So when the time came for change, they had a hard time finding their sneakers when they needed to move on quickly because they weren't prepared for losing the cheese. If they had anticipated change, like the mice did, they would have had an easier time reacting. After the waiting around for a long time for the cheese to come back, Haw realized that he needed to make a change. He was tired of waiting for his situation to change on its own. He finally realized that if he would have to change himself if he wanted his condition to be different. Haw was also scared of change and was afraid of going out into the maze. To him, the maze was the great unknown, far outside of his comfort zone. He was comfortable at Cheese Station C. What scared him even more was staying in a cheeseless situation, hoping that yesterday's cheese would once again appear before them. Hem disagreed. He believed that they should stay where they were. He became too comfortable and wasn't ready to change. So Haw set out into the maze alone to face his fear and perhaps find new cheese. Once you've decided to move one from your old comfort zone and find a new one, make sure you embrace the change. This will keep you from continually thinking about the past and how things used to be and miss new, better opportunities. As Haw started running through the maze, he felt liberated as he began to trust the process of changing. He never knew how good change could feel. After running for a while and coming across some dead ends, Haw finally found the cheese he had been looking for. Not only that, but he also found Sniff and Scurry there as well. Haw knew the journey wouldn't be easy, but what he didn't realize was how much he would enjoy embracing this new path he was on. He enjoyed it so much, in fact, that he could not wait for Hem to adapt to the change and join him on this journey. You should constantly be monitoring your environment and be aware of anything signaling to change. Sniff and Scurry kept a close eye on their cheese each day and noticed the pile was getting lower and lower. They anticipated that a change would happen. Hem and Haw were caught off guard. They were not paying attention to their pile of cheese, and when it ran out, they were taken entirely by surprise. If they had been paying attention, just like the mice were, they would have been better prepared to move on and find a quick solution. But because they hadn't, they were left complaining about how unfair their situation was. They sat and waited, hoping more cheese would come to them instead of taking action themselves. Throughout this process, Haw became a changed individual. He went from being scared of change because it was uncomfortable, to being forced to change so that he wouldn't go hungry, to then enjoying and embracing the move that led to finding his new cheese. He realized that he never wanted to be in a cheeseless situation again. In order to prevent that from happening, he would need to monitor his cheese each day, so that if and when he would need to find a new station, he could adapt faster. Haw decided he needed to plan for his future. Just like Sniff and Scurry, he kept his sneakers and running gear nearby, so that he was prepared for any change coming his way. He only wished that one day, his friend Hem would be able to change and find his own way. The mice, Sniff and Scurry, and the little people, Hem and Haw, live their lives in search of cheese. The mice, with their simple brains and great instincts, spend their time looking for the cheese they like best. The little people, with their complex minds, beliefs, and emotions, look for the kind of cheese that, they believe, will bring them eternal happiness and success. After their search, both groups found the cheese they were looking for in the same place, Cheese Station C. They were happy. However, when the cheese ran out, each group dealt with it differently. Sniff and Scurry didn't overreact. They knew that this would eventually happen and set out to find some more in the maze. Hem and Haw didn't understand why the cheese disappeared. They weren't prepared for it. Instead of moving on, they waited to see if more cheese would appear for them. After a few weeks of waiting, Haw realized that he would need to change his ways if he ever wanted to have cheese again. So he set out into the maze to find a new station. Meanwhile, Hem stayed behind, fearful of what was out there in the maze and not wanting to change. Haw failed to find a new station many times and even ran into some dead ends. He kept going, however, and ended up finding the cheese he was looking for. But he now knew that this won't last forever and that he should always be willing to change and adapt when the cheese runs out.